Of truth. I've been asked to give my analyses of the Mississippi bill that aims to create an artificial new district inside of the state's capital of Jackson. There's also another political incident recently that I meant to comment on, and I think I can kill two birds with one stone. Normally we discuss cause and effect, but in this case we're going to deal with the effect first and then the cause. Now, for those of you who may not know, the Mississippi State Legislature, in their latest bit of racial skullduggery, is plotting to segregate the capital city of Jackson by declaring a part of that city to be a new district. Now, this new district has been drawn up in such a way as to encompass almost all the white citizens in the city, and they would have their judicial matters presided over by a group of unelected judges who are chosen not by the people, but by the white state lawmakers themselves. And they will greatly expand the jurisdiction and the authority of the Mississippi State Capitol Police, who are among the most violent and lawless gang of state-sponsored thugs in the state. And that's not all. The Mississippi State Senate has also passed a bill to establish a so-called regional governing board for Jackson's water system, even though the city already has federal oversight on that. And of course, the board will be appointed by state officials, not the people who live in Jackson. This is verbatim what Republicans did in Flint, Michigan, you'll recall, with their so-called emergency manager law, and we all know how that turned out. The white legislator who came up with this scheme doesn't even live in Jackson himself. He lives over 150 miles away. The Mississippi State Constitution says the judges have to be elected, but he said, well, not all the judges have to be elected. That's supposed to be his loophole. Now, the good old boys had no problem with the judges being elected by the people, that is, as long as whites were the overwhelming majority in the state, and certainly the majority in the state capital of Jackson. But since blacks are more numerous than they've ever been in the state's history, the white supremacists there are now violating their own laws and declaring that the judges have to be appointed in this case by a handful of white office holders and not by the people who live there. For all you dumb Negroes who occasionally come bombing into my comment section saying, well, we need to vote Republican then, here are your Republicans at work. Yet another GOP extra-legal takeover of city government in a black municipality. Rather than declare that the black citizens can't vote, they're instead going with the strategy of just declaring that black government officials will have no authority to administrate anything. Now, the lie that the right-wing racist who came up with this scheme is using is that they need to make this district in order to fight crime in the Jackson area. Only problem with that lie is the area that they're proposing to turn into a new district is among the safest in the entire city. It's an area with shopping centers and several neighborhoods that are predominantly white, so clearly this isn't about public safety. That's why the judges who are going to be administering court cases there are going to be appointed from outside of Jackson so that they can have the best and brightest running the judiciary in this new artificial district. Gee, if this is such a great idea to appoint judges as opposed to electing them, then why didn't the white GOP lawmaker who came up with this scheme do that where he lives? Oh no, where he lives, he demands that he be able to choose who the judges are. But where black people live, he says, let's all of us white supremacists gang up together and we're going to just decide who's in charge there. And what a surprise, it's going to be themselves. Because that's white supremacy. They don't believe in living under the laws they write. As I've said for over a decade, they didn't write the laws for themselves. They wrote them as a means to control black people. Now, this bill has already passed the Mississippi State House and is expected to pass the state Senate. And what is the Mississippi legislature's so-called Black Caucus doing while all this is going on? Exactly what the Congressional Black Caucus does. Nothing. The Mississippi Legislative Black Caucus is busy singing songs because that's what you do whenever you're facing a threat. You don't try to fight it. Instead, it's time for choir practice. They're just trying to present themselves to white power as totally unthreatening. These Negroes love to brag that they're in the State House when they go to church or wherever else. To them, they're social climbers. But how much good have they been doing black Mississippi? Now, before we go any further, Mississippi's black population is at least 38% of the state. The figures are surely higher than that, but 38% is all that the white census is comfortable admitting to. Though you wouldn't know that 2 out of every 5 Mississippians is black if you look at their state legislature, blacks are scrupulously kept out of state government. And the Democrats have allowed this to happen for decades. Both the major parties play off of each other when it comes to subjugating us. Republicans are the ones who carry out the blatant anti-black policies, and the Democrats are controlled opposition whose job is to keep you and me sitting on our hands because they tell us they're going to fight for us. But of course they never do, because that's not their job. That's not their purpose. The state of Mississippi hands out millions and millions of dollars to white cities and even interested white individuals simply because they ask for it. Don't believe me? Ask Brett Favre about that. He can tell you all about getting millions of dollars from the state. But when it comes to black cities, the now governor of Mississippi, he ran on a platform of denying Jackson the funds they were requesting. That was his political platform, that he was going to run against black people in Jackson. He ran on an open platform of denying Mississippi citizens the benefits of their own tax dollars, and that he would do it based on race. See, you have these white supremacists like that punk at Howard University I told you about last Friday, who push the white right-wing lie that it's black people who look to the government for everything, and black people need to stop looking to the government. Well, what do you see white Mississippians doing right here? Same thing we see in Georgia, Florida, and so many other places. They're relying completely on the state. When there's something they want, the first thing they start doing is looking for a government official to give it to them. They're not relying on private business or community organizing. They're 110% relying on government. And these white supremacists who run these states have openly said that they will only put resources into white areas. This is why black cities are poor, because they're kept that way as a result of a blatant open racial policy of selectively impoverishing black areas of the country. Not because I said so, but because the racists who run these bigoted backwaters say so. And they know this. The MO of the white supremacist is to lie and deny. That's their entire strategy. Lie and deny. They live off of the public dole. They owe their entire existence to the government. And then they tell black people that we're the ones who always look to government for everything. Now, this blatant racial takeover of Jackson is, of course, causing a furor. But what I want to know is, what are the Democrats doing about this? Nothing. Same way they did absolutely nothing in Michigan when Republicans took over Flint through an unconstitutional law. President Obama was in office when it happened, and he went to Flint himself in the wake of the water poisoning crisis that occurred there. And what did he or his black attorney generals do about it? Nothing. There was a so-called investigation, but as we knew, nobody was actually going to go to jail over it. Obama himself only did a photo op, claiming that the water in Flint was safe to drink. Oh, and vote for Hillary, by the way, because you need to secure his legacy. He didn't prosecute anyone. Democrats got back control of the Congress when Biden was elected. And how much money did the Democratic Congress choose to send to Flint, or Jackson, or anywhere else? When it comes to black people, they just never seem able to do it. But they have no trouble sending millions and millions of dollars to white areas, the same people who claim that they don't look to the government for everything. And that brings us to the second reason that this is happening. Right next door to Mississippi, you have the not-so-great state of Alabama. And the capital of Alabama is Montgomery. And the mayor of Montgomery is a guy named Stephen Reed, who was recently caught on audio saying the same things that these bootlick puppet politicians say when they think no one can hear them.
Don't ask me, I can come smile. I don't have to do no goddamn work. Okay? I don't have to do no work systemically, and I'm going to be fine. And guess what? I will always get 38 to 45% of the white vote. If I get 30 to 45% of the white vote, I don't have to get the white vote I got this past election. You got black city, that's great. You can have all black everything. And guess what? You won't have green nothing. You know, white money, things that you are looking after, they will take the frat bill, they will take the white road, and you won't have it. So what I'm going to tell Karen when I meet with them, don't ever tell me that I'm on TV. Every time I'm on TV, I get somebody from New York or LA calling about how can they invest in you going to invest in Montgomery? You think I expect the descendants of Confederate soldiers to invest in Montgomery? Y'all what's good with it? Well, they give us some charity. They give you some charity. Okay. They do anything nice. Okay. They do some nice little retired calls on the board. But now, they will really invest in systemic change? Hell, no, they're not going to invest in it. So don't ever mix up what I'm doing there. You haven't seen a scientist as diabolical as me, because no one has come into this with what I have.
You get that? He said that he doesn't have to do anything. And since Montgomery is over 60% black, when he says he doesn't have to do anything, he means he doesn't have to do anything for black people. He doesn't have to do any work systemically, he says. So all you Negroes in Montgomery who are wondering why systemic racism is still plaguing you, it's because your mayor says he doesn't have to do any systemic work. In fact, as he put it, he doesn't have to do any G-damn work. Which perfectly explains why he's not doing anything for black people in Montgomery. And just to make sure that people got the point, he said that he will always get 38 to 45% of the white vote. He's just so sure that those white supremacists in Alabama love him that much. And why? He told you himself. He's looking after their interest. They are his priority. White power demands that black people be kept impoverished, and that's what he's doing. There have been black mayors who improved the condition of their black citizens, like Maynard Jackson and even Marion Barry, but this guy has made it clear he's not going to do that, and it's a deliberate decision. Hell, he's mad as hell at the concept that somebody would actually suggest he'd do anything for black people. Stephen Reed knows exactly what side his bread's buttered on, and he loves having it slathered by white supremacy. He's more interested in catering to the white Republicans who didn't vote for him than he is with black Democrats who did vote for him, who are the majority of the city that he's supposed to be the mayor of. That's why he said that if he gets just 30 to 45% of the white vote, he doesn't have to get the black vote. Not in the same numbers that he did it before. Gee, what does that sound like to you? What does that kind of political calculation sound like to you? Well, it sounds like he's trying to put together some sort of voter coalition, but as he explained, one that wouldn't leave him vulnerable to black people's demands. He's trying to put together a voter coalition that will not leave him vulnerable to angry black voters who are mad that their black mayor's not doing anything for them. And I wonder what he's going to call his new would-be voter base. Perhaps he'll call them Reed Republicans. See, whether it's Rahm Emanuel or some bootlicking punk in Alabama, you see that the Democrats have a national strategy at work. Neutralize the black vote. This Reed clown is pitching a fit about being reliant on black voters, and all he can think about is not having to rely so much on black voters. And what is it that he's terrified that black voters are going to want? He's terrified that they're going to want something that is not expedient to the interest of white power. He said it himself. He wants to be able to win with less black votes. Black people are 61% of the electorate in Montgomery. If anything, he should be politically totally secure, but instead he's mad, and I mean crazy, not just angry. Though I do have to admit that he sounded amusing in a lunk-headed kind of way when he was talking about no one's seen a scientist as diabolical as him. Scientist? Really? I don't know how much science this guy's learned. He comes off more as a professional BS artist. The problem is these bootlicks are always telling themselves what geniuses they are, and that's because these white think tanks and democratic organizations who find these tools gas their empty heads up with how smart they are. Like Obama, you had the white media saying he's so articulate and elegant. You had chumps like Chris Matthews claiming that Obama played four-dimensional chess, etc., etc. No, Obama didn't. He did the same thing this Reed clown is doing because the bootlicks only have one play: keep white power happy, and they always do that the exact same way, by systematically continuing to deprive black people of resources and reassuring white power that they'll make sure they continue to be funneled all the resources exclusively to them. Do you think that this Reed clown has ever gotten this worked up about racist white lawmakers in the state denying Montgomery funds? Montgomery is the capital of Alabama, just like Jackson is the capital of Mississippi. Alabama's right next door to Mississippi. When the good old boys in Alabama state legislature decide to do like Mississippi and start nullifying elections in black areas, does anyone think that Mayor Stephen Reed is going to fight them? He's simply trying to climb the political ladder, and that means he has to keep moneyed white interest happy, the people who he's hoping are going to donate to his campaigns when he tries to run for higher office. And we know that's what he means because he made it crystal clear that's what he wants. This guy makes it clear he has total contempt for the very black citizens who voted him into office. This guy is a Democrat, but he talks about black people no differently than any white racist Republican in Mississippi, West Virginia, Texas, or anywhere else. He has nothing but contempt for black people, even though he is one. and Democrats choose him to be their stalking horse precisely for that reason. These are the kinds of backroom conversations that the Keisha Bottoms and the Karen Basses and the Sylvester Turners and the Barack Obamas have with these Democrat Party bosses. You have to pledge to the bosses that you hate black people as much as they do, and that you'll never do anything for black people. That's the only way that they'll make you their candidate for office. This is the kind of talk they do when they think we can't hear them. Why is it that the black members of the LA City Council, or the California State Legislature for that matter, didn't do anything about those racist Latino members plotting how they were going to shut black people out of all arenas of the city? For the same reason that your black Mississippi Legislative Caucus never seems able to do anything for black people. For the same reason that the Congressional Black Talkers never do anything for us. Because as they see it, they have all escaped being black as soon as they got the pat on the head from Democratic power. When the Democrats put them in public office, they figured that they had escaped being black. And as they see it, their fate is no longer tied to the black masses. They're not like us. They're going to have a different destiny no matter what happens. Black people as a group could go extinct, but the Stephen Reeds and the Barack Obamas, they think they're going to be just fine. As they see it, they've found a comfortable, safe place under white supremacy, and they will fight against our interest and serve up the entire black community as a human sacrifice if it keeps their new masters happy. This is why we see these white supremacists from coast to coast going on these legislative rampages like this. Why shouldn't they? The white supremacists feel they have nothing to lose at this point, but they also feel like nobody's going to punish them for their behavior. But that's only true if we do nothing. We cannot do as South Africa did and allow those who carried out these racial attacks to simply go back to their old jobs and positions after their plots fail, as if everything is everything. Democrats are not interested in black empowerment. They are opposed to it. And they're not interested in achieving civil rights, whatever definition you may choose to use for that term. They're only interested in appearing to fight for civil rights, though mostly it's black people doing the fighting, while the Democrats sit back and say, vote for us. In George Orwell's classic dystopian novel 1984, the plot revolves around a fictional ongoing global war between three world powers. Britain is run by a malevolent totalitarian regime, and the people are told that all that matters is defeating the enemy. The people are told that they've won battles against the enemy, and that their country's making progress in the war, even though the war has gone on for as long as any of them can remember. They're making progress, according to the party, but there's never any evidence of it. The war just goes on, as does the oppression. In the end, George Orwell wrote, "The war is not meant to be won. It is meant to be continuous. Hierarchical society is only possible on the basis of poverty and ignorance. In principle, the war effort is always planned to keep society on the brink of starvation. Its object is not the victory, but to keep the very structure of society intact." That book was written over 70 years ago by an Englishman, but Orwell made it clear he was talking about the world. And we've seen this Orwellian Big Brother propaganda played out most aggressively in the United States. The white media constantly sings the false siren song that American society is not an oppressive regime, when the reality is that's exactly what American society is. But nobody has the courage to say who the society has been keeping in a state of impoverishment and using their media and black bootleg stooges to keep us ignorant. Nobody dares to say exactly who this society has been keeping on the verge of starvation, because it hasn't been keeping everyone there. It has been keeping a small select group of people there. And we already know why that is and who it is. Instead, all we get from the white media are lies that there's a political party fighting for civil rights. And both the white left and the white right say things are better than they were in the 80s, or the 60s, or the 30s, or the turn of the century, or slavery, etc. Isn't that ironic? Both of the major parties don't seem to agree on much, at least they don't claim to. But when it comes to black people, they both agree on the lie that, oh, well, things are better than they were before. There's been this constant march of progress. Why, if you Negroes just be patient, just don't rock the boat, why, things will work out just fine. You see things working out fine? There's no evidence to support this, but they keep saying it, and they use a few cherry-picked token Negroes to try to convince us that their fiction is somehow true. Economic and social progress is the quintessential American lie. Things are not good.